I'm Edie Lush, Executive Editor of Hub Culture. It is Davos 2026 and I'm here with two friends. How are you guys?
Excited.
Good. It's a good week. So we've got Diane Binder. How are you?
Very inspired and happy to be here.
Good. And Nicola Gryczcka. We've been speaking for so long, but we're talking. You guys are founder and CEO of Regenopolis, co-founder of Regenopolis. Now we're going to get to what Regenopolis is, but we're going to start off with this concept of regenerative hospitality. A little bit jargony, but I think it has there's a good focus. Tell me why you guys are so focused on this as an issue.
Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So we very much focus on place-based transformation, and we think that hospitality is a fantastic catalyst for territorial change, because the sector connects to pretty much everything, to food, to land, to culture, to infrastructure, to education, to health, you name it.
To people.
And to people, of course. So, and the sector can transform in such a drastic way and impacts the way people react, and the way, the ripple effects are quite big as well.
So give us an example, just first of all, of the kind of thing that you're doing, just to give us a sense of some of the impact you can make.
Well, what we do is just connect the dots as well and really unleash the power of hospitality being that catalyst. Because right now it is one of the industries that's quite slow at discovering its potential, as well as slow at bringing change in. So that's what we're trying to shake the industry up to see that potential, because it lies, what Diane was saying, we're really looking at an industry that every 10th job is within the industry. It is 10% of the GDP and it's growing. We suppose if you look at the ref reports, this is an industry that's growing. So what we're trying to do really unleash that power with various activities, from one, seeing the potential of the industry from within and from outside. So how can other stakeholders come in and unleash and accelerate? But also hospitality players themselves, right? How can they see what impact, positive and negative, they're having in local communities and what they could do? And so it's both from hospitality projects that exist, but also those that are getting started. How can they actually be regenerative by design and really follow not only the philosophy of it, but really follow clear principles and learn from those that are already doing great impact in the territories.
What's the potential for hotels, for example, of what they can gain by getting into regenerative hospitality?
Today hotels are trying to be more sustainable, which is definitely not good enough. So they have a potential to just transform the place and link with the ecosystem, to be a responsible stakeholder of the place, and inspire local communities, restore natural ecosystems. Of course, having more sustainable practices, but it's more about a change of mindset, seeing themselves not so much as an extractive industry, but an industry that belongs to the territory and to the place and the people.
Food is obviously an enormous part of this, and the food is, I think, about 25 to 30% of what guests might spend. It also can connect directly to culture, to local farmers, but I wonder how much it is and how you can encourage, what are the levers you can encourage hotels to move more to a local regenerative food system?
Well, food is one of the most tangible effects that you can see in regeneration. One, because there are very tangible practices from a sourcing point of view. So how do you produce food, if you produce as a hospitality entity yourself, or where do you source? Who do you source with? And the principles, obviously, regenerative agriculture. That's a starting point on production. But then as well, who do you source with? Seasonality, that's all reflected in how the hospitality project brings that into the menus and being playful, right? If it's the season, so you connect to culture through it. So it's something that's so experiential, plus it is, if we think of hotels, in the end, we want a bed and we want to be fed. Then come experiences and other things where you can connect, but food is one of these key elements of it. And so it's the storytelling behind. So sourcing, seasonality, how do you serve the food? And for me, the storytelling behind who's producing the food. Why is this a cultural element in that local community? Because it comes back to that as well, right? Because behind the food, there's tradition, and again, talks to the place-based potential. And so I think there's so much playroom and creativity you can bring in as storytellers, and also, of course, zero waste that we've spoken to a lot here in Davos already. So these elements, and circularity is a key element of regeneration as well.
What are the biggest blocks? What's the biggest stumbling block that you're finding at the moment?
On regenerative hospitality, I would say it's mobilizing the ecosystem, because it's a sector that has always worked in silos, so very little connected to local governments, to other stakeholders within the private sector, to NGOs like civil society, and so that's, I would say, one. The other one is financing. Like, how do you mobilize financing to actually fund, again, the ecosystem and not only the hospitality assets, if you want. So it's really about designing the approach to make sure everyone is around the table and everyone is interconnected. And I would add the third one, which would be the governance, like how, not only governance of the hospitality business, but how do you link maybe a vision to actual implementation? And how do you, when you think of, because there are many cases, especially with small independent hotels, of legacy, how do you make sure that the vision of a founder can be passed by, to the next generation, basically?
Concrete example. Give me an example of something that you've already seen work well.
There are plenty, but to Diane's point, we need to uncover those stories, because it's also one of the challenges is not seeing the tangible stories and saying, this is wonderful in practice and beautiful principles, and how do we make money in the end? How do we make it sustainable financially? And so one of the examples that we like to bring as one of the trailblazers is actually in Brazil. It's called Ibici Projeto, we're also representing. And that started 40 years ago, where actually it didn't start with hospitality, which links beautifully, because hospitality came in as a transformational tool after. So it's a tool, not the end goal. And so they started actually buying territories and letting nature do its way, regenerating the forest. It's in the Mata Atlântica in the south of Brazil, or southern part. And afterward, hospitality came in because the communities were leaving. There was no economic opportunity for the local communities. So how do we bring that back? And so that's where hospitality came in. There are 3 different models within the hospitality project now that tailor to different preferences, from very isolated, integrated within nature, to being a very traditional, place-based, how life used to be in that area. And a third one, which we really get excited about, which is co-living with the local community. So they regenerated the whole village, and you as a visitor, this is a luxury regenerative project. So you live with the villagers, spending a lot of money, but yet you're integrating in the village. So it's almost this luxury that puts you at discomfort. And at the same time, this is the hospitality part, they continue regenerating the land, integrating species, so the biodiversity has started flourishing, springs of water reappearing, species reappearing. I mean, there's still a long way to go because we've destroyed so much, but it's really, for me, that is a project that shows that it's possible. And what if we can decode this model, inspire others, because you can't replicate the whole thing, take it here and put it somewhere else, because each place calls for something else. But how can we learn from the approach? What worked, what didn't? That's why the community of practice that Diane was mentioning is so important, that we exchange with each other, learn with each other, and really accelerate. And that's where the financing, where the ecosystem comes in to accelerate that movement in a way. I think that's what we're building in the end.
To build this constellation of regenerative territories and just like share best practices and lessons, because that's what can be replicated. Indeed, like not the blueprint of a specific place, but like what principles, what philosophy, what intention, and create this constellation around the world, because there are so many good examples out there.
Extraordinary. Thank you so much to Diane and to Nicola for stopping by the Hub Culture studio here in the sun. It's Davos 2026. I'm Edie Dash.